Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya menjemput semua penonton. I would like to invite everybody to this Saturday post-lunch webinar from UKM, Malaysia. Our topic today is about mushroom poisoning, which is, I think, very seldom, not very often being discussed in Malaysia. So I will first introduce you to our list of panelists and also our moderators. So today we will have 4 different speakers who will be talking on the issue of mushroom poisoning. And we will actually begin with Dr. Ruth Sabrina, followed by Dr. Jayasilan, and then Mrs. Sazaroni from Pusat Racun Negara or National Poison Center. And finally, we'll finish off with Dr. Anissa Adenan from Malacca Hospital. Following the short lectures between among the speakers, we will have the forum for the Q&A session. So I would like to invite all participants to, if you have any questions to the speakers, to ask it in the Q&A box below and not in the chat box. Okay, please ask in the Q&A box for any question that you want to put forward to the speakers. We will do that in the forum session, and the forum session will be moderated by Dr. Zaki and Dr. Sabrina. So I would like to first introduce you to our first speaker, which is who is Dr. Sabrina Safuri. Dr. Sabrina Safuri is our emergency physician from Hospital Sultanah Hospital Raja Permaisuri Bainun in Ipoh, Perak. She is also the current Deputy President of Malaysian Society on Toxinology and one of the RECS or Remote Envenoming Consultancy Services consultant. So her main interest is in clinical toxinology and medical toxicology. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Sabrina to present her talk today. Dr. Sabrina.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. So can you hear me and see the slides?
Yes.
All right. It is a very great honor for me to be here today. Just about 20 minutes to present about the mushroom poisoning in Malaysia. The topic that was given to me was is the mushroom poisoning in Malaysia is serious. So first and foremost, I would like to thank the chairperson, moderators, and also all fellow panelists. I am not a mycologist to begin with. All of the presentation here is merely based on the experience actually being consulted for a few of the mushroom cases that we have encountered in rats, and also a few of them also I have encountered the information from the previous mushroom poisoning courses that I attended before, right? So first of all, who doesn't love mushroom, right? So mushroom in Malaysia is one of the delicacies that we always consume. There are a lot of edible mushrooms around in our surrounding, and we always actually eat it for those who love the mushrooms. Here is a few of the edible mushroom that I have consumed before, including enokis and also oyster mushrooms and cendawan buta, etc. Mushroom is also use or consume for the health benefits as well. So in this picture, we can see the consumption of lindsay for health benefits, and also tiger mushroom or Lignosus rhinocerotis. So it is not new to us. So
your slide is a bit big.
Yeah, Sabrina, can you resize your
We're
slide?
missing some info.
what happened?
Your slide is too big. Maybe
It's
can you
zoomed out. I mean, so it's zoomed in. Sorry.
zoom in? You share with
Wait, yeah.
try and share first and then reshare back. Okay, try and play. Yes. Oh, it's the setting of your screen. Try full screen. Try resize the slide presentation.
Okay now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Right.
Thank you.
So, all right. So the source of mushroom for food in Malaysia, we can divide it into two, which is the cultivated mushrooms from the industry, and also the harvested from the wild. In Malaysia, the mushroom foraging behavior, we can observe a few of the behaviors of the mushroom foraging. So basically, from the few cases that we have encountered before, most of the cases is that the mushroom was being either picked or plucked from behind the house, from adjacent to the roads, and also going to the jungle and seeking for the mushroom blooming, especially in the rainy seasons where the mushroom actually tend to bloom. And from the other pictures, we can see, of course, it's not in Malaysia, it's in Pakistan, whereby they are collecting the mushrooms and sell it just adjacent to the road. Also, other mushroom foraging behavior, including bringing the mushroom excess to the field or to the forest and plucking the mushroom, and after that we'll see whether the mushroom is edible or not. So it's edible, then it is safe to be consumed. And also one of the things is that we're afraid that for the children that actually go into the jungle and also plucking all sorts of interesting mushrooms, and we are afraid that they will actually consume them. Okay, so in Malaysia, Malaysia is the 67th largest country by total land area, and 2/3 of our country is covered by forest. But I believe that now it becoming less because of the consumption and also consumption of forest to make a new buildings, etc. So anyhow, Malaysia is still rich in floras and faunas, and there are lots of micro and macro fungi in the ecosystems around. And the macrofungi studies actually involve the biodiversity, cultivation, and health benefits of edible mushrooms, whereby the microfungi studies actually studies about plants and animal pathogens, secondary metabolite productions that can be used for health benefits, for example, and also studies about mycotoxin contamination of food and feeds. So Lee et al. In 2012 actually had come up with a checklist of fungi in Malaysia, and they managed to list nearly 4,000 species of fungi in Malaysia that includes macro and micro fungi. So came to our specific objective, which is actually mushrooms can be classified as edible and also non-edible or poisonous mushrooms. So what is called edible mushrooms? So the edibility of mushrooms is when the mushroom actually contain absence of poisonous substance or effects on human, and where the edible mushroom had the desirable aroma and taste, and the texture is soft. Bear in mind that although the texture is hard, for example, in lindsay mushrooms, they can also be consumed as a medicinal supplements when they are actually converted to the powder. And also, normally the edible mushrooms is consumed for nutritional, dietary, and medicinal benefits. The source is from the Samsudin et al. In one of the review in the International Food Research Journal in 2019. Whereby in mushroom poisonings, also being called mycetism or mycetismus, is results from the ingestion of poisonous mushrooms. And why it happens? In a study in the US, even in Malaysia, I believe that the mushroom poisoning, 95% of it actually happens because of the misidentification by mushroom harvesters, whether it's experienced or non-experienced, especially in 95% of the cases. And also because of the deliberate consumptions of mushroom for certain effects, which is the percentage is probably less than 5%. I think no need for me to mention regarding the number two, what is the mushrooms that involved, yeah? So, and also there's reports about contaminated edible mushrooms with bacteria. In this example, I actually quoted the listeria contaminations in enoki mushrooms, which is actually just happened in mid 2020, which is actually been described in the CDC website in the US. Okay, so with regards to the why the mushroom poisonings tend to happen, so the misidentification that I mentioned just now is the most important thing. So most of the cases in Malaysia actually involve GIT symptoms, and most of the culprits that being discussed with us in rats, and I believe outside rats, and being discussed with the mushroom research centers in UMS or UMS or UNIMAS, is actually derived from this culprit, which is the chlorophyllum molybdenum being mistaken by the Termitomyces species. And of course, there are other mushrooms involved as well that can presented with other signs and symptoms. This will actually be described by the other speakers after this. Right. So for mushroom poisoning, basically, if a healthcare worker in the klinik kesihatan or in the hospital, if we have the cases, normally it is mandatory for us to notify under the food poisoning section using the e-notification system. And when we call food poisoning, the case definition would be divided into two, which is the clinical criteria and laboratory criteria. And the clinical criteria, which is actually initially described in the food poisoning case definition, is only GIT symptoms. But bear in mind, for mushroom poisoning, it is not only involved the GIT symptoms per se, it might have other signs and symptoms as well. So for laboratory criteria is actually when there are positive ID, confirmed with experts, and also isolation of the pathogens or toxins. This is quite a challenging criteria also in Malaysia. And it is called confirmed food poisoning if the criteria is met, and we call it an outbreak of poisoning if there are two or more cases that is consuming, in this case, mushrooms that cause this similar signs and symptoms. So this is the example of e-notification that we have in Malaysia. If the health facilities do not have the facilities of internet to do the e-notification, then they can notify using the manual form under the food poisoning section. Maybe you want to specify here, say mushroom poisoning. And the manual form can be faxed to the inspector kesihatan on call for them to do further contact tracing and control and prevention. So back to my topic. Is mushroom poisoning serious in Malaysia? So my thought is that yes, especially when it is a rainy season monsoon in Malaysia, particularly in March to April and also August to September every year. And these monsoons nowadays is actually not specifically March to April and August to September. It is actually more than that. So is it serious in Malaysia? Yes, especially the cases that presented to the clinicians with toxidromes, such as severe gastrointestinal symptoms that lead to hypovolemic shock and its complication. Yes, if the toxidromes involve neurological complications that cause, for example, persistent seizures, and it's complications of the persistent seizures itself. Yes, if there are presence of severe muscarinic toxidromes that cause severe sludge syndrome. Yes, if there are presence of delayed effect with fatal hepatotoxicity. And it is also serious if the recreational mushroom hunting behavior persists in searching for specific mushroom species for desired effects, for example, the psychedelic effects, etc. And the last but not least is yes, if it is complicated with concomitant salmonella infection, meaning that the mushroom is cooked with the other kind of meats that is not or improper cooked, that can cause concomitant other toxin infection as well, such as salmonella. And yes, if the mushroom is plucked adjacent to the road, for example, where the pesticides or the herbicides or insecticides being sprayed prior to the collection or harvesting of the mushrooms. So this is what I can find from the data from the internet from our National Poison Center Malaysia, and our colleague I think will present further information about this. So we can see that the bacteria, fungi, algae cases that referred to National Poison Center from 2006 and 2010 actually is comprises about 16% of the cases that they have encountered for types of natural toxins. Of course, the most cases will be a snake bite. And this is the data that been presented before in one of the mushroom poisoning course in 2017 by the water foodborne control by Dr. Aisha, which is actually data is quite latest in 2012 to 2017 October, whereby there are 44 episodes with 204 cases and no death in Malaysia. And basically, majority of the outbreak actually amongst the household contact and 18% amongst the workers of the estate and timber. And majority need to be admitted and involve adult cases. And the incubation period or the time to onset is about 15 minutes to 4 hours. And the risk factors is, as I mentioned before, mistakenly thought poisonous mushroom with the edible one, and eating of unknown varieties of mushrooms. Okay, so we can see over the times the number of mushroom toxin poisoning cases is not really to say increasing. Those of the reported cases, I'm sure there are a lot of unreported cases as well, because many people do not know that we have to notify the disease under food poisoning e-notification. These are the signs or symptoms of mushroom toxin poisonings according to our Ministry of Health food waterborne control, which is majority came with vomiting and diarrhea, and also abdominal pain, nausea, and few of them actually presented with dizziness, headaches, fever, and etc. Right. With regards to the clinical encounters, these are my encounters when I have been posted in one of the hospital in Valley before. We have encountered 4 clusters of mushroom poisonings involving likely or confirmed cases of chlorophyllum molybdate before, and whereby the patients actually presented with GIT or gastrointestinal symptoms and complications of it. And this is also my encounter in a few cases that we've managed in Taiping, Perak, Malaysia, whereby the culprits over the left side is chlorophyllum molybdate, and of course this one is a very difficult for us clinicians. Actually, we need the help from the mycologist to determine what kind of species is the mushroom. So this is our experience from Taiping Hospital. And of course, the myth that actually a lot of us believe and has been debunked is all of those listed, which is all white mushrooms are safe to eat, which is actually turned out to be a myth. And all mushroom is safe to be eaten once cooked thoroughly, which also is a myth, because although the mushroom is cooked, the toxins there is a heat stable and can cause signs and symptoms as well. And animals will avoid poisonous mushrooms, which is also a myth. And toxic mushrooms smells and taste horrible, which also not really true. And also the belief of peeling or drying remove or inactivated poisons, which also is debunked as a myth. Okay, this is my few slides. Avoiding mushroom poisoning. How we can avoid the mushroom poisoning? So of course, my reference is from slides from Mushroom Research Center which adapted from the Shelley Evans. But you can search for the Shelley Evans guideline. There are 13 of the how we can 13 criteria of how we can avoid mushroom poisonings. But I already simplified it. So basically, if we know, we ask the experts. If you want to go for mushroom hunting, bring your mycologist if for confirmation of whatever mushroom that you harvested, and do not eat raw fungi, and keep some uncooked specimens behind if you decide to cook, because if you have got or developed signs and symptoms, then you can bring together the uncooked specimens to the hospital for the healthcare provider to identify, or we can ask the experts to identify the uncooked specimens, and only eat good specimens and not the rotten one, and to keep the collection in the fridge for the mushrooms to sustain the good specimens, and avoid eating with alcohol, especially when we are talking about mushrooms like coprinus with alcohol that can cause a disulfiram-like effect, and avoid serving wild mushroom to susceptible advanced age group, particularly the elderly and also the children that can experience severe signs and symptoms if we are talking about GIT symptoms that can cause that can lead to shock, especially hypovolemic shock. And eat in small portion, and do not eat all of the mushroom delicacies for yourself. Right. With regards to what is the initiative from the Malaysian Society on Toxinology, well, we have actually come up with our newsletters and with specific topics of top experts in mushroom poisoning. So thanks to the MRCUM as well, whereby this is actually one of the educational notes that we publish, and also the efforts of doing the posters with regards to mushroom poisonings, do's and the don'ts. So which actually is available online. So this is my thought with regards to the mushroom poisoning. Is it serious in Malaysia? So I hand it over to the chairperson, Dr. Khaldun. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sabrina. That was a very appropriate opening for our discussion today. So we will actually, you can actually get into the MST website online. We will share the link later in the chat group. So our next speaker is Dr. Jayasilan Satya Silan. He is actually a senior lecturer or researcher from the Institute of Tropical Biology and Conservation, Universiti Malaysia, Sabah. So welcome, Dr. Jaya, all the way from Sabah. So he is actually had his PhD from Clark University, Boston, Massachusetts, USA. And he has been working on the systematics of agaricales and polyporales mushrooms of Sabah for the past 12 years. So Dr. Jaya has a lot of publications and won several awards for his efforts, and he is currently the managing editor for the Journal of Tropical Biology and Conservation, UMS. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Jaya to present his talk this afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon all, and welcome for the talk. And I appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself. And yeah, you can call me Jaya. And thank you, Dr. Ahmad Khaldun, for the introduction. And today we are going to talk about all the mushroom poisoning issues and cases and case studies. So as you, without further delay, I would like to share my screen so that from there we can see all the number of mushrooms that it's around us, but we do not know what are the types of mushrooms that are edible or poisonous, or even we do not know some of the mushrooms, what are the importance in nature. Is it just for edible or purpose, or is it for, you know, ecosystem recycling materials, stuff like that. So today I would like to exhibit all kind of the groups that I have studied for the past 10 years, and also several primitive groups that has been currently undergoing the experiment and stuff in the UMS. So with these, we can able to understand at least 5% of information to obtain a kind of small knowledge to further your understanding on these mushroom poisoning issues in Malaysia.
Dr. Jaya, can I stop you there for a second? Can you resize? Yeah, can you resize your?
Okay. Is it the same problem?
Yes. Maybe you need to resize your slide.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Where shall I resize this? Huh? Okay. Okay. Is this one?
Just share again.
Okay. How about this?
You need to share again.
Oh, share again. Okay, hold on. Okay. Share again. Okay. How about this one?
Okay, try play screen.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I still zoom in.
Okay.
Maybe Dr. Sabrina can help.
What was the problems?
Huh? Just now I shared the entire screen.
Yeah, share the entire screen.
Slideshow. Entire screen.
So maybe unshare first, is it, Sabrina?
Yeah, I have to unshare and share the entire screen.
Oh, share the entire screen?
Yep. Then you can click to the PowerPoint. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Share screen. Share optimized for video. Okay, share.
Is there an option? Okay.
Is it okay?
Screen play screen. Try and play your screen. Presentation. Slide presentation.
Is it okay?
Oh, still Zoom. I mean,
Oh, I see. Okay. Let me try with this one. Okay, custom presenter view. So it should be okay,
play.
right? From start. Is it play from start? Is this okay now?
It looks okay actually on my side.
Is this okay now?
Okay, try go on, continue, I suppose.
Okay, let me try with this, like this kind of things. Okay. At least I can try with this. Is it okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So it's actually too big, it's zoom out. So what you do is at this, when you are share screen just now, select share whole.
Okay, hold on. Optimize for video clip. I don't think so. This one, it's from the, okay, is there information to everything? Okay.
Okay, it's okay. Just continue.
I just continue. Yeah, I mean, I will do it like this. So in this way, you guys can able to see this.
Try play. Can you just play the what do you call presentation slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Presenter view. It is good.
Yeah. Continue. Yes.
Okay. Good. So let me. Sorry for the you know, the error, technical error. Okay. So as you all understand, what about mushrooms and poisoning? Okay. So what type of mushroom causing these poisonings? So we have to know and understand the cycle of these kind of mushroom that causing poisoning in nature when one person consuming the type of mushroom, because if, even an individual taking the mushrooms from the field and then they cook and eat, okay, it depends on the several individual how the mushrooms sensitivities for their bodies to take, you know, and a different kind of reaction. But most of the common mushrooms like Amanita, chlorophyllum, all these are giving a series of same patterns like, you know, vomiting, you know, stomach cramps and stuff like that. But what are the categories of mushroom and what are the types of poisoning is a very, very serious matter that everybody have to take it into account. And the collaboration between mycologists and chemists or toxicologists and between medical officers only possible for us to cataloging all these information for the nationwide. So in Malaysia, these are very lacking, and this has been started from with the MRC, with Dr. Shane and then Dr. Prof. Vicky, and then we all are collaborating on these kind of things on mycologist part. However, the chemistry and the toxicologies and the medical information are very lacking. And the collaboration between each of these and the medical doctors and the officers tend to only report as clinical based reports, like case studies, okay? And also the chemical diversity within these poisonous mushrooms has not been thoroughly studied in Malaysia. So we do not have a proper cataloging like how the Americans and the Europeans have for those common mushrooms that they have found in the mushroom foray, because they are more active in the mushroom foray. However, we all are basically based on season, where we are always confused with the edible mushrooms between the poisonous mushroom, especially for the termite mushrooms, or we call cendawan busuk. So these are the complications that we have. So what we have to do. So we do have to really work as a tripartite efforts, okay, where as a mycologist, you give out all these information and also gather the toxic information as part of the, the chemical and also the compound studies and everything. And this will lead to a very good and better understand among the medical officers as well, because they can give us all the information on the poisoning type and how the patient is response. So this kind of information we have to catalog. Okay, so as for the introduction, I've already given you, in terms of my definition, I would consider that mushroom poisoning in a 3 different collaboration here. So is it one species or how many are there in Malaysia? So I'm going to talk about the global view first and then narrow down to our Malaysian perspective, and especially in Sabah, because this will be a stepping stone for other regions to collect those information from now onwards. Okay, so as you can see from this map, the bubble map, okay, was produced based on the number of papers and number of cases talking about mushroom poisonous incidents throughout the year 1990 and 2019. So this map represents the mushroom poisoning worldwide, which is until the 2019. However, the number of sequences deposited, okay, every time when you have this mushroom poisoning, you can check it out around all these sequences are available from North America, South America, European, African, Asian. But how many sequences are available for Bornean region or Malaysian region? It's very less, okay? So here, the Sabah has reported under 34 cases since 2010 till 2019, based on our discussion between the JKNS, which is Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Sabah. And we are trying to compile these information in a proper way, where this can be disseminate the knowledge on mushroom poisoning and what type of mushrooms are the common mushrooms that has been causing a lot of problems among the people. So here, as you can see, the green border, I mean, this is the lacking. So these are the kind of mushrooms that have been reported here. And these are mostly worldwide occurrence, and where especially in South America, North America, and European side, because these countries tend to have more foraging behavior than us. However, here we do have all these myths, like as Dr. Ruth said, we only look into the mushrooms that has insects, kind of, or whenever it's white, you can eat it, things like that. So the first document that we have record here is actually from the Journal of Medical Journal, 1918. So this written report as a case study where soldiers, the group of soldiers in Perak, they had this hallucinogenic mushroom they consumed, and they eat together with ikan bilis, onions, and tomato, like things like that. And this has caused a lot of problems among these soldiers. So this was in Peninsular Malaysia, but other than that, in 2008, there was a case study on one patient come with a lot of vomiting and stuff like that. So these are the 2 reports that I find it's legit for our Peninsular Malaysia cases. But what are we lacking here? We do not have a proper catalog of mushrooms, which are the poisonous ones. And there are lack of collaboration between the JKNS, UMS, or any universities, public universities with the Ministry of Health, because these kind of things works, we have to work as a tripartite efforts, only on base case studies. So the case studies, of course, we have a lot of procedures with the medical board where you have to register under the NMRR. So once you are registered, then only you are able to understand the permit and everything. It's quite complicated, but we have done that. So now it's smooth to work with all the medical officers within Sabah actually. So with Sabah case, we have a lot of effort between JKNS, UMS, and MOH. But Peninsula is a lot of cases worked by actually, the UKM, and sometimes the MRC has been actively involved since the case when Dr. Baran was reported this in 2017. And lacking intensive sampling, that's all I can say from here in Malaysian perspective. where the sampling are still lacking and proper herbarium curation has not been done in Malaysia. And the remote areas access, like in Sabah, you have a lot of cases like Sabah, Sarawak, a lot of interior places. There are reports, but it's not coming to the hospital yet. So these are the things we have lacking information to further this effort. And also sample preparation techniques. Okay, these are the causes that a mycologist is giving to public and also to the medical officers and medical inspectors, where the health inspectors are exposed to these techniques means they are able to go to the place where the cases were occurred and the patient will tell where is the location and they go and take the GPS location and also the information on the fresh sample, because the few samples that we receive, usually we can't able to identify the mushroom because it's already damaged. So these are the things that we are lacking and we have to go through one by one in order to find a proper cataloging. So what we are doing in my lab, okay, the methodology is based on DNA analysis and also basically on systematical studies. So the systematics using DNA phylogenese and also ancestor trait reconstruction, kind of a trait evolution between the edible and the non-edible and the poisonous one. It's more interesting in our lab where we are able to produce a lot of oyster. These are the oyster categories that we have in Malaysia, the wild one and also the commercial one. But how many of them are edible? How many of them are not edible? So we never know. So we do a proper cataloging and all the important morphological characters to categorize whether they are poisonous or edible. So these are long-term process, but we are accumulating all the data for the Malaysia. And each time when we collect a sample from the medical health practice, they always come with a sample and also the detail of the locations, because these are very important for us to curate and also to report these to JKNS in terms of where the type of species has been reported commonly and also continuously. So people might be asking which part of the mushroom can be eaten, can be can be consumed. So if it's the mushroom is poisonous, it's every part is poisonous. Okay, it's not going to be only in poison. The poison is accumulate in the cap sector or even in the ring or even the stalk or vulva. So these are the parts that you have to basically understand. These are all made up of mycelium. So it's a fruiting body. It's just one entity here. Okay. However, the mycelium thread that makes the shape of the mushroom. So it's a common knowledge that you all can understand from here. But remember, if it's a poisonous mushroom, we cannot categorize these as poisons, only accumulated here or in the stalk or in this. Because when the samples comes, of course, we are analyzing the whole fruiting body for the further analysis. And the mushroom collections and curation is a very important process in our studies where we collect the fresh mushroom. Habitat photos must be taken, location has been taken, the substrate need to be notified, and also the paper bags or any container types that before drying you need to bring the samples in. And the fresh remarks, when it's a fresh sample, you have to at least note the color, note the changes. Sometimes when you touch, it turns into a red color. So these kind of information, it's a crucial if you are sending the specimen to a mycologist. And drying process, you can dry if there is no dryer or anything. You can dry under the sun or even near the gas stove area. Just dry completely so that no maggots. Okay, then you keep it for the DNA analysis. So these are the process that we have been doing for the whole year. Okay, for one example that I'm going to give here, the Sindawan Susu Harimau, Lignosus. Okay, you see, a particular species locations in Malaysia, it's not been widely studied. So what we do, we are doing species distribution modeling. Okay, what type of modeling is we are doing is actually according to the temperature zone and also the humidity level and also the topography. So here, based on the literatures and based on the current distribution of these species, we are able to tell, okay, where does the species is more confinedly located in each location. So this will be helpful for further, study on this kind of medicinal mushrooms. So this is same goes to the poisonous mushroom as well. So the poisonous mushroom, we can locate this kind of when there is an incident according to the state or even the small district level, which I will show you where is the hotspot area in Sabah as well. Okay, and when Dr. Maria Sulaiman and Dr. Christina and the team, we all went and we all did a lot of information on these mushroom poisoning category for Sabah. And now I think Dr. Shane and Prof. Vicky and all the medical officers are coming up with the Malaysian poisoning categories, all the information, which is very good, where it can be available for nationwide, okay, nationwide. And this is only at the state level, which is the Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Sabah, where we came up with all the guideline and the management of the mushroom poison, where the type of the poisoning categories and what are the types of mushrooms causing these symptoms has been categorized, and the local context number, and also the sheets, how to prepare the specimen and how to send the specimen. Everything has been detailed in this guideline, which you can have a look in the internet, Google search. Okay, it was done in December 2016, and it was a great effort that mycologists combination with medical officers, and we come up with this kind of guidelines. So when you're talking about what are the top mushrooms that causing mycetismus in a temperate region, why I'm talking about temperate region, because every time when the local people, they always the naming of the species is always messed up, and always have been problematic. But remember, the temperate region mushroom is not necessarily available in here in Malaysia because it's tropical, and our climate and our region is usually needs a lot of DNA evidence to show that they are different species or whether they are same species. So as you can see out of these, the Amanita Philoidis is the highly cited papers on the amatotoxins, which are causing a lot of problems in the temperate region, especially also in Muscaria. But in Japan, as you can see, the Podostra macrolidame has been caused a lot of it. And this species is also confined to Australia and also in Malaysia. In Malaysia, especially in Borneo, we have these guys. So far we have no report, so we don't care about but in terms of awareness, definitely we have to know that this mushroom is deadly poisonous and people should not take and eat. Okay, so these are the pictures, the overview of this, top 10 mushrooms from worldwide. But these are all we need Malaysian species. Where are the Malaysian species? That's what we are into it. Okay, so as you can see, the extremely serious cases are caused by Cortinarius, which are the group of mushroom that can damage your kidneys. So this is one of the importance where the same genus can occur in Malaysia, but is there any cases on the kidney damages? So these are the information that we have to try to update in our system. And also this species, Torgia venenata, is also available in tropical countries and also in Sabah and Malaysia. This species looks like Philoidis, like the oyster mushroom, which people can mistakenly identify as a oyster mushroom, and then they consume it. So please do not, because these mushrooms are very, very poisonous, highly poisonous, and they call it as a little white mushroom or nail-like mushroom. Because these mushroom, Torgia, is basically a lot of amino acid attacking compounds has been found, like monoterpene, sesquiterpene, ergosteroid. Okay, so these are the kind of toxic that have been documented from China. But what about Malaysia? So these are the things that we are lacking. What about the idea of the mushroom? What about the chemical of the mushroom? What about the activities that causing the disease or any kind of sensitivity to patients? And then another mushroom that I always encounter in tropical, which is in Malaysia, the Macrolapiota. Macrolapiota is amazingly widely distributed in Malaysia. Okay, some people they know that edible, But some people, they do not know there are one species within the Macrolapiota is highly toxic, which is serious hepatic toxicity. But so far, it has been reported only in Asia. So in Malaysia, I don't see any cases, so we are safe. But this mushroom looks like chlorophyllum as well, but they are totally different, okay? Because their stipe and the rings are different from the other species. Here, what I'm going to highlight here, it causes hepatic toxicity, and their toxic color changes when it's reddish brown, when it's a fruit, it's round, okay? So these are the kind of indication. So not all within this group are toxic. Some of them are edible, but which one you are choosing, it's very important. So please choose wisely. Huh? So you ask a mycologist, and the role of mycologist definitely here in this work as it's crucial for them to identify the mushroom for you. And Cantharocybe is also another gastrointestinal mushroom that causing a lot of GI syndrome in Thailand, which are very close to our neighbor country. Yeah, so they were reported this gastrointestinal mushroom poisoning, which are the Cantharocybe. Cantharocybe, some of the species you can eat, some of them you cannot eat. So you have to categorize them. In Malaysia, we do have the Cantharocybe virosa. So do not mix them. Huh? So the next cases, number of cases, as you can see from the 2001, the cases, sometimes it's spiking up, and then sometimes within the 2000 to 2009, there are no reports, or we do not get the reports. So it's a lot of plausible explanation here. However, the reported cases all rising during the rainy seasons, and people mostly encounter with mushroom poisoning mean chlorophyllum. Okay, some are Pleurocybella, some are Trogia. So these are the kind of information that we have to gather for the medical officers need to work with the mycologists so that we can have this mutual collaboration for us to highlight this for Malaysia. And for Sabah, with the help of JKNS, I did with them and we collected, and it was successful in those areas that we could highlight which are the hotspot area. So these are the hotspot area where the people tend to consume a lot of different kind of poisonous mushroom. Why? Because the elders in their family, they are very confident when the mushrooms are, living according to this insects and flies over their top of the cap. That means it's edible. So it's not always, because those myths, we have to remove it, because these are the things that we have to train these people, the public. How do we do that? So I will explain this all in the next few slides. Okay. So these are the kind of things, information that you have to consider for each state. So each state, let's say each university has a mycologist. So all, they have to collaborate each other, because you can't do this alone. Because when you do alone and you are going to update all the chemical and the diversity and also the information on the patient's retreatments and stuff, it's impossible. So this is why we have to have a very, very tripartite efforts to work on it. Okay, so some of the forests, you can say forest to table or forest to hospital. So it's all does, it's according to seasonal. And sometimes it's also, there are kind of a mimicry type where some mushrooms are always look like the oyster mushrooms, and people tend to eat. And some mushrooms look like a cendawan busut, which are the termitomyces. So these are the perception of people, and the local people tend to mix up sometimes from the palm oil one into their bags with the poisonous and the edible one. So this is one of the cases that I spotted when I was doing my survey throughout the palm oil area. So these are the kind of, the cendawan padi, right? Straw padi, something they call the Wolveriella. So the Wolveriella is always, they mixed up with some of the Philoidis, which is the edible one and the non-edible one. And sometimes they mix up also with Pleurocybella, which we do not want them because they are GI syndrome mushroom. So very, very dangerous. And these are the termitomyces, Pleurocybella giganteus, which are found by my friend Atik, were from Indonesia. So you see, these are the species that we have in Malaysia as well. And also we are trying to cultivate them, only the edible groups, and some locals, they have a very special dishes, which are locally, they produce during the harvest time. And also when you are going to meet them in the villages, in the mountains, they tend to have all these kind of, local foods with mushrooms. So we documented all of these for our study as well. So these are the all non-poisonous mushrooms that we are cultivating in the lab, where this will be keeping in a kind of the seed bank. We do want all the edible mushrooms, the resources that in the forest, to be commercialized one day. So that's the dream of every researcher or anyone. So we have to keep all these in a way that like a catalog, so that everybody can study together on these kind of species. So everybody welcome to to have a collaboration. And we identified, and then what we do for the public to motivate them, which are the edible, which are the poisonous. So we come up with a lot of the posters, and during the during the activities we have to highlight these kind of things. Oh, then the locals will say, oh, I know these mushrooms, yeah, this one can be eaten, this one cannot be eaten. So they can differentiate those kind of things. So those are the surveys that we did with the people, local people, and it's been very successful. And these kind of analysis, these are the analysis that base where all the kind of how many percentage the people has been responded to us, and also are not sure with any of this edibility or not. Okay, the mushroom that species eaten mistakenly in Malaysia, these are the common mushrooms like chlorophyllum, which are look like the Macrolapiota or cendawan busuk, and Trogia looks like pleurotoid, and sometimes it end up Trogia. So these are all the species that you have to know, the kind of looking similar to the edible ones. And these are the edible termitomyces. And remember, these are the pictures are from Dr. Shane Ware from Peninsular Malaysia. And these are all commonly found in Sabah and also Borneo, in any part of Malaysia, Borneo, and also Peninsula. And these are the species that you need to know. These are also edible, but it's very rare people to find, because it's near the termite mounds, the dead termite mounds, you can find all these. It doesn't mean you can eat directly, but always careful, okay? And then Amanita groups that are edible. There are many Amanita groups are edible, but none of Malaysians know that which are edible and which are the poisonous ones. So that's a very interesting part when I see when there is an orange color or red color or yellow color, people tend not to eat because they say colorful mushrooms are poisonous. So that's a wrong perception as well. So here it's a very interesting case on Amanitas, where some are edible, but not, the princeps is not edible. So how to differentiate? Can you differentiate how many species are here? So definitely not. So that's why you have to make sure what species are they. Okay, so the recent case on the neurotoxic mushrooms was reported in last year, 2019, in December, when the hospital Kota Marudu reported immediately as soon the patients were admitted in the Kota Marudu hospital. So I was in the field work, and then I received the call, and then immediately I said, send the sample to us, and then we will process. And within the 2 days, we able to, but I could tell the genus level, but not the species level, because species level, you have to make sure that you go through the microscopic and also the DNA evidence. So this mushroom is the first record in Malaysia, because the species was described in China in 2013, but it was reported poisonous in China, but not in Malaysia. So this is the type of mushroom that we have encountering when the season is there, because people assume that when it's growing on the termite mound, that is edible. That's a very, very wrong perception. So please always remember that it doesn't matter whether it's grow, because they grow on a soil basis. Okay, so whatever that organics, are they utilizing those food for them, so they can grow anywhere. So it's not a specific area. So we received the sample and we did a lot of analysis, and then it close matches to the antheloma. Mesodydium. They are sister groups. So it was very interesting to have this first report, neurotoxic mushroom. And the patient was in ICU and then recovered after that. So all this while from 2015, the work has been accumulated on poisonous mushroom and then we grow up together with other universities collaboration where the poisonous mushrooms and interviews and UMS, NGOs, medical officers, and the agriculture department, local people has been involved. So with these kind of activities here, we have trained them, in a basis of to know at least 1 to 5 mushrooms that really for sure. So each of this mushroom workshop able to describe them in a hands-on training and also touch the specimen to look into under the microscope to see what are they. And some of the NGOs members are from the, FRAME, national institutes like FRAME and then forest areas, forest people from Sarawak. They all participated and then they gained more information, at least from a basic level, to differentiate what are the species. And sometimes we create a group where we are able to communicate with the pictures and tell what are the genus and things. And then when I finish the report, we always send the case reports like, in this form where it's easier for them to know a simple way of which are the category of type of toxins and which are the species. So it's easier for them. So this work we have been doing closely with MRC and under the Dr. Vicky and then Unimas Hasnol and then Panchiaway from clinical pharmacology and then Shin from UM as well. And now we are extending towards UKMR. So I hope to have more collaboration from you guys in the future. So as in total, we can say that from my study and my group, my lab has been recorded, the edible species are 180 so far, and the poisonous 243, medicinal 75. And the species that frequently reported for poisoning are the chlorophyllum molybdites. It's the most cases in Peninsula and also in Sabah, but according to the seasonal base, chlorophyllum molybdites is reduced now in Sabah, but other types of mushroom has been taking over, which are the Plirosebella, Amanita, and Lepiota, and Trogia as well. And now the recent one, 2019, is the new report as Enthaloma. So these are the kind of information that interests to me, and more works can be done in terms of the analysis base, because the DNA-wise, all kind of mushrooms can have the name, which we have failed to do all these while. So this is our effort. So UMS funded this project, and it's been going very well, and it's a great platform for us to work as a partnership, And sometimes people ask me whether these bioluminescent mushrooms are edible or poisonous. So I would say this is not edible at all because of their appearance and the morphology look like Pleurotus, which are the oyster mushroom. They are not edible. So please take note, whenever you see this is not edible. It's just a beauty purpose. Like, they glow at night and they are attracting a lot of insects because the spore dispersal is going on. So it's ecological importance, not for edible purpose.
Can you conclude in 2 minutes?
Yes, Ken. So these are the things a mushroom emergency has been done. So please cooperate with us, all kind of information, whatever you have, like, the poison mushroom, the Poison Institute should work together with us and, to accumulate all the kind of toxics that available, the toxic diversity in the mushrooms has to be highlighted. And these are the public awareness that we give from time to time and to educate people which are the types of mushrooms and what are the current progress in these mushroom poisoning in Malaysia. And public outreach programs, yes, we do a lot of public outreach in the interior village and also educational tools out of it to educate the children's. And also some of the products that we are doing to educate students, or the public using a lot of different types of mushrooms, whether it's edible or poisonous, we have to notify them. And also the steps on the other part of toxin profiling, it's going on. So please welcome, whenever there is a case or report, please share with the mycologists. And these are my networking and collaboration internationally and national as well. So these are all my collaborators, which we work together as well. And thanks to all my lab members. So this is our lab members, and these are all my students. So they're doing a great job. And if given the opportunity, we create a community. So that's my philosophy. So with this, I end my talk. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jaya. It's very, I would say, illuminating information that you have given us. Frankly speaking, from the perspective of the emergency doctors, we treat patient first.
Yes.
So the ID, as you see, your identification to the species may take a few days later. So that is probably from the clinical perspective is a bit more academic, but in terms of life-saving intervention of the patient acutely, we may have to use a different type of key in terms of the symptomatic or syndromic approach to the group of toxins rather than the specific species of mushroom. That one can be added later after we contact you guys and the report to the JKN. Yeah, so it's really, really good that we've been seeing a lot of cooperations over the past few years, and I think we are moving towards the right direction. Okay, so let me introduce you to the next speaker. This is Puan Sazaroni binti Mat Rashid. She is a pharmacist from the Malaysian National Poison Center in Universiti Sains Malaysia in Penang. Puan Sazaroni special interest is in drug and poison information, mushrooms and other natural toxins, subject matter in the National Poison Center, Universiti Sains Malaysia. So without further delay, I would like to invite Puan Sazaroni in a car to present her slide. Maybe you can switch off your camera, Puan Sazar. Can share your slide. Yeah, you need to turn on your mic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Khaldun. Give me about 2 minutes. I need to share my slide with you, with all of you. Just share screen.
Okay.
Okay. So I hope everyone can see my slide here.
Yes, much better.
Okay, very
yes.
good. Okay. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this webinar session. The topic I'm going to share today is the report on mushroom poisoning in Malaysia, which have been referred to us. Okay. So as an introduction, National Poison Center at Universiti Sains Malaysia was established in 1994 on the directive of the Malaysia Cabinet to serve as a referral center for drug and poison information in the country. So in 1995, we started up our services by offering the drug and poison information service and also education and prevention. And in 1996, we expand our service to research and documentation area and also in toxicology lab. This toxicology laboratory, which provide analytical and screening services to support research, commercial testing of chemicals, adulterants in food, cosmetics, and traditional cure products, of course. In 1998, we have been designated as WHO Collaborating Center for Drug Info in the country. So this Drug and Poison Information Service Unit is a dedicated unit to provide information and advice on poisoning to both healthcare and professionals as well as the public via telephone calls. And these services provided free and 365 days in a year. All right. So this is our number during office hour and also for the non-office hour calls. And okay, majority of the calls to the National Poison Center are mainly from hospital and clinics around the country. With a smaller number from households. So every time we receive calls, there are certain assistance we can provide in terms of identifying the poison, what is to be expected from the exposure, what would be the best approach for managing the case, as well as is there any antidotes available, what are the delay effects, and what are the investigation or monitoring parameters that we need to look for. So let's jump into the topic for today, this afternoon. In the case of mushroom poisoning, it is unfortunate that we don't have any expert or mycologists in the center to identify the mushroom So what do we do? Most of the time, we'll provide recommendation based on symptoms the patient has, based on the onset of the symptoms. And this scenario, this situation is applied especially when we don't have enough information regarding the mushroom, or maybe we don't have the photos of the mushroom. So when we receive such a case, we'll ask whether the caller can provide good quality photo of the mushroom to us, and we'll send it to mycologists in the university to help identify the mushroom based on the photo. So we work closely with the School of Biology in university to assist in terms of ID the unknown mushroom that has lead to poisoning cases. Okay. These are among the examples, photos that we receive. So how best can we appraise this photo? So on the left side, the good thing about this, it has good appearance of the mushroom. We can see the cap and the start. Unfortunately, we are not sure the nature of under the cap and the hollowness of types and size. And the right photo is good that we can see the habitat, but we uncertain for the cap and style as well as the size. So the best thing is we can provide indicator to see uh, the size, and also we can see the hollowness of the style as well. Okay, so in National Poison Center, we receive cases regarding poisonous mushroom from time to time. So altogether, from the establishment of National Poison Center up to 2019, we have received almost 60,000 cases, which from the cases, only 2% or around 1,000 over, which involve, which in, which involve natural toxin. Sorry again. Okay. So only 2% which involve natural toxin. It can be other venomous scorpion, whatever, all under natural toxin. Okay, from this 2% or 1,000 over number, we have about 30.6% of natural toxin comes from unknown mushroom or poisonous mushroom. Okay. And the type of mushroom toxins based on cases referred to our center from 2006 till 2019, more than 70% of the cases are unidentified or unknown. We are not sure, we are not certain of the species of mushroom that involved. This is a big number actually. And the other 21% goes to gastrointestinal irritant, type mushroom. Okay. And then we have psilocybin contained mushroom, mossimol or ibotenic acid, 2%, and the mascarin contained mushroom, which about 2%. Okay, so among the most commonly reported poisonous mushroom to NPC is chlorophyllum species. The most common one is chlorophyllum molybdites. We also receive Lepiota species and Inocybe species from time to time. Okay, if we look at the mushroom poisoning cases we receive per year, I can say every year we receive such a case. Okay, and we look into the month, we can predict there are certain months where the rainfall is high. So among September, October, November, as well as the April, we receive more cases compared to other months. Okay, if look at the states, we can see that Selangor in the peninsula, Perak, among most commonly reported states where poisoning mushroom has been involved. We also have Sabah and Sarawak, regarding poisonous mushroom. Okay. And then in terms of gender, okay, data in Malaysia has shown that our people, male contribute or more prone to involve in mushroom poisoning cases. Not only in mushroom, but other poisoning cases as like pesticide poisoning or household poisoning, which is also involve more men than women, more male than female. All right. So we look at the age group where we have divided into few subclasses. We can see that adults are more prone compared to other groups of age. So we can, this is quite common because adult used to forage the mushroom and cook in the family. Okay. So these are a few examples that we receive in this center regarding the mushroom poisoning cases reported to us from time to time. I just pick a few just to share the scenario that happened in the country. Okay, the first case is regarding a patient, 3 years old girl and 9 years old girl, which came with the history of vomiting and diarrhea for one day, vomiting more than 10 times, diarrhea more than 5 times after ingestion on mushroom, picked their house and cooked by their grandmother. The grandma made the curry dish with the mushroom, ate at 11 a.m. and then the onset of symptoms started somewhere in 2:30 p.m. Okay, vitals are stable, renal profile are normal. So from this case, we can see that the child exploratory habit is one of the common reason, one of the reasons I can say, which has involved patient eat poisonous mushroom. Okay, and then the other case, the patient alleged collected the wild mushroom from his farm and used in their fried rice. Both husband and wife ate the fried rice, which contained a chopped wild mushroom around 4 to 5 p.m. About 4 hours later, they developed symptoms such as shortness of breath, and then they have gastrointestinal symptoms like vomit and diarrhea a few times. They claim the mushroom is kulat tahun or Termitomyces species. As Dr. Jaya have mentioned just now, the close resemblance between Chlorophyllum molybdites and Termitomyces species mushroom is too common. Is too common in the country. So on behalf of National Poison Center, I think we should look further in this issue actually. Okay. The other case, under the close resemblance, the grandmother collected mushrooms surrounding their house with which she described as white with black spots mushroom and cooked to serve the family. All 4 family members suffering from the same symptoms such as vomiting and diarrhea. They ingested the mushroom around 12 p.m. and onset starting 2 p.m. 2:30 p.m. It's just about 3.5 hours after the ingestion time. Okay, the other case, which involved 6 people living in the long house. Okay, the ingested mushroom collected around the drain area, cooked as soup and consumed. The mushroom they described has white stalk and white cap with black gills. These are the some kind of description provided by the patient to the doctor. Doctor called us, and these are the explanation given to us. And it was given, they was given IV treatment, IV ranitidine, and the symptoms resolve. Okay. The other case, possibly the exposure of pesticide to the mushroom, which patient collected on home lawn and developed some symptoms 4 to 5 hours post ingestion. Another family members also have the same symptoms such as vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. And they mentioned pesticide was also sprayed 5 days ago in the home lawn. So we have to be very cautious about mushrooms that have been picked where herbicides or fungicide might have been used. Some fungi are very adept at absorbing toxic compounds, so it's recommended we don't eat mushroom picked near roadways or other suspicious location. So we can say the most common reasons of exposure, patient exposure to poisonous mushroom is because unintentional mushroom poisoning as a result from public misidentification of a poisonous species as edible. Sometimes the edible and poisonous mushroom share the same habitat. Wrong technique during collection of the mushroom might cause trouble. This is very true in terms of the Termitomyces and chlorophyllum molybdites, which grow side by side on the same area. And if they don't apply the correct way of foraging, they may end up with eating chlorophyllum molybdite instead of Termitomyces. And the other common reasons, of course, the exploratory nature among children. But there are also other possible causes of the symptoms, such as, okay, I've mentioned the pesticide incorporation, the anxiety, the bacterial contamination, heavy metal incorporation, allergic reaction, intolerance, excessive consumption. These are among few cases that we also receive regarding mushroom ingestion, but this contributes very small number. Okay, so there are certain superstitions of edible and poisonous mushroom in Malaysia. Our people, they believe poison mushroom have a poisonous looking color, like bright color. If an animal can eat it, human can too. Any poisonous mushroom turn to be edible if salted. To just bite, not to swallow, the poisonous mushroom is safe. So I think I've come to my last slide. These are among few issues that we can data we can share from the National Poison Center with all of the participants today. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Puan Sazaruni. That was a very, I think, informative talk. We now know a bit more closer in terms of how National Poison Center function and how we can collaborate to make things much better for the documentation of mushroom poisoning in Malaysia.
Exactly,
So,
exactly, Doctor.
yeah. Yes, so it's really, really good timing that we have this session today. I'm very happy as well. So far, National Poison Center has been very receptive to our calls for collaboration. So let us move on to our last speaker today. This is going to be presented by Dr. Anissa Adenan. She is the emergency medicine consultant in the Hospital Malacca, and she is also a member of the Malaysian Society on Toxinology and a remote envenoming consultancy services consultant. So Dr. Anissa has a very colorful background. She has an interest in medical toxicology. She's one of our medical toxicologists in Malaysia. And she's also interested in culinary arts. So, you know, mushroom and culinary arts, very close. So you have to be careful when you're invited to have dinner with her. So anyway, so between her busy schedule, working in ER and doing clinical toxicology, she also likes to eat cheese. So that's another area of interesting discussion for the future. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Anissa to present her talk. Anissa, can share your screen. Something is new. We probably lost connection with Dr. Anissa. Or there you are. Can you share your screen now? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We can see it. Proceed. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So this is the last talk of the day. I was given the task to talk on clinical management of mushroom poisoning in Malaysia. Now, if you look at our culture and our diet, mushroom is a pretty common item in our day-to-day food intake. How common is mushroom poisoning in Malaysia? Puan Sazaroni has provided some data over the last few years on mushroom poisoning. And we have had sporadic cases on and off over the years. Majority of our mushroom poisonings are related to the GI irritant mushrooms, in particularly Chlorophyllum mollibites. Some data shared by our friends from the Mushroom Research Center in Universiti Malaya, showing that from 2015 to 2017, majority of our cases of mushroom poisonings are from Chlorophyllum mollibites. There is some mention of, in 2016, some cases of mushroom poisoning with Pleurocypella porogens. And I think Dr. Jaya mentioned about Pleurocypella porogens. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. So much so that our Director General of Health came up with a press statement back in 2018 because of the sporadic cases of mushroom poisoning in Malaysia. The press statement was advising the public to avoid foraging for mushrooms and eating wild mushrooms. Now, here's the challenge in managing clinical cases. This is a case recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had that was referred to us from Pahang, I think. And this was a family that was given a bag of mushrooms by a family friend and was told that they were edible, and they cooked the mushrooms, and soon after, mother and two kids developed GI symptoms and they landed in the emergency room. Now, being Malaysians, we know Malaysians and their characters. When they forage for mushrooms, they harvest all. They don't leave anything behind. And when they cook everything. And when they eat everything. So if your patient ends up in the emergency room with leftovers like this case, then consider yourself lucky. If you look at the picture on the left, this mushroom is still identifiable. And if you have problems with identification, sure enough, we can call for assistance from our mycologists. But if you look at the rest of the leftovers in this mushroom soup, which is actually taken out on this paper here, the bits that is seen here is unidentifiable. I mean, even the mycologists do not have any idea what this mushroom is. So the challenge is to identify these mushrooms. And as clinicians, we do not have mycology background. So this is a very difficult task, and it puts us in a limbo. Pusat Racun Negara's data tells us majority of the cases, the exact species is unidentified. Fortunately for us, in our society, majority of our mushroom poisonings have very low mortality. They are generally benign with mostly GI symptoms. So for clinicians, if we cannot identify the mushrooms, it makes sense to use a clinical system classification, which is more relevant for us as clinicians to treat the patients. And this clinical classification makes use of the patient's initial signs and symptoms. what are the organ system involvement, and considering the geographical location where the patient comes from and where the mushrooms were harvested. This is a simplified classification that I used that was proposed by the mushroom poisoning proposed new clinical classification by a group of toxicologists and toxinologists. And they classified into the types of toxicity: cytotoxic, neuromyotoxic, metabolic or endocrine symptoms, and GI irritants. If you look at cytotoxic mushrooms, I think most of you are quite well aware after the first 3 lectures, cyclopeptides containing mushrooms, in particularly amatoxin and phallotoxin. Amatoxin and phallotoxin is extremely hepatotoxic, and unfortunately it is heat stable. So cooking the mushroom is not going to remove its toxicity. The problem with this mushroom is that the symptoms comes in 3 phases. So you have a patient that comes in with GI symptoms. With amatoxin containing mushrooms, the GI symptoms do not present early. So if you have a patient that presents pretty late, more than 5 hours after ingestion, you have to have a very high index of suspicion. Could this be an amatoxin containing mushroom? Now, in the first phase, they have a GI symptoms, and after that, they start to recovery. Now, if you are in the ER and you have a patient with mushroom poisoning, you start them on a drip, they're vomiting their toenails out. With the drip, you give them antiemetics, you give them antidiarrheal, they start to recover. You feel good, the patient feels good. What do? You discharge them. Now, if this is an amatoxin containing mushroom, this patient might come back to see you in the next 72 hours with fulminant liver failure. This is a pictorial showing you Amanitas or Amanita mushrooms and the features of Amanita, which I think Dr. Jaya has already explained. If you can look, Amanitas have a universal veil, and this is the fruiting body as it grows and, as it grows out of the ground, part of the universal veil remains underground. So most of amateur mushroom hunters do not dig below the ground. They just cut the mushroom above. So identification can be a little bit difficult because you have missed the vulva. When I started practicing toxicology, I was not sure what species of Amanita was found in Malaysia. We have very, very little data in our local species of Amanita. So looking at some of the cases in Thailand, they do have Amanita poisoning, especially Bisporigera. And we also have Amanita Philoidis in Malaysia, which was surprising to me. If you look at this picture, they are all white. So with an amateur mushroom hunter, they might think this one looks similar to this one or similar to this one. But if you don't really dig under the ground, you are going to miss the vulva. In this picture, the first 3, the one on the left upper, left lower, and the right upper is Amanita, whereas on the right lower is Termitomyces, which is edible. Other cytotoxic mushrooms, Cortinarius is another species of mushrooms that contain oralanine, and oralanine is nephrotoxic. Oralanine is actually a hydroxylated bipyridine compound, which is very similar to paraquat. And if you see your patients with paraquat, they end up with renal failure very fast. Why? Because this is rapidly excreted in the urine. And as it's excreted in the urine, it damages your tubules, your renal tubules, and it causes interstitial nephritis. Now, with this oralanine containing mushrooms, symptoms again do not appear rapidly after ingestion. It can be delayed as far as 24 to 36 hours after ingestion. And the symptoms may have some GI symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, with abdominal pain, and then they start feeling thirsty. Renal failure does not occur immediately. So oliguria occurs days to weeks later. So if you have patients who present with late GI symptoms, you need to follow up these patients to make sure they are not ending up with renal or liver failure. This is a case of Nicholas Evans, who was the Horse Whisperer author. And he and his family, his wife, his brother and sister-in-law ended up with renal failure because they picked the wrong mushrooms. They were looking for yellow chanterelles, which is highly prized. Unfortunately, they mistook cortinarius as the chanterelles, and they required lifelong dialysis as a result of that. Neurotoxic mushrooms, muscarine containing mushrooms. Now, if you remember, muscarine is very similar to acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. And acetylcholine acts on your muscarinic and nicotinic receptors. Well, muscarine acts on muscarinic receptors. And if you remember organophosphates, you have a lot of muscarinic symptoms. So similarly, with a muscarine containing mushrooms, your patient is going to present almost similar to an organophosphate poisoning. You have your diaphoresis, meiosis, bradycardia, your diarrhea, vomiting. Fortunately, for these kind of mushrooms, the symptoms are generally self-limiting. So the treatment is mainly supportive. The good thing is the onset of symptoms occur rapidly. It's not delayed like amatoxin or oralanine. So you need to rehydrate the patient, and usually it resolves within 24 hours. The species of mushrooms that contain muscarine are Inospy species and Clitosby. Other neurotoxic mushrooms, some of you might have experimented on this. These are psilocybe containing psilocybin. If you go to Bali, I'm sure you would find some psilocybe mushrooms there for you to try. These are hallucinogenic mushrooms. Psilocybin is very similar to serotonin, your feel-good neurotransmitter, and also almost similar to LSD. Sometimes you find people looking for these mushrooms on cow dung. These are the little bluish mushrooms that grows on cow dung. Another one is, I think you probably recognize this as the Smurf mushroom. This is Amanita muscaria. Now, although the name is Amanita, this mushroom does not contain amatoxin. It contains ibotenic acid. And ibotenic acid is similarly structured to glutamate, which is your neurotransmitter. Ibotenic acid is metabolized into mucimol, and mucimol is similar to GABA. So what it does is mucimol can act as a GABA agonist. So ibotenic acid is a stimulant. So when you take Amanita muscaria, or when you eat this mushroom, first you get the euphoric effects. This is because of the ibotenic acid. And over time, as ibotenic acid is metabolized into mucimol, you start having CNS depression, and then you go into a coma. Fortunately, again, the symptoms does not last too long, mainly supportive. If you need to protect the airway, intubate, and allow the mucimol to be metabolized and excreted, and the patient will wake up. Metabolic mushrooms. This is an example that I'm showing you here. This is a false morel. Now, morels are highly prized mushrooms, excellent with meat. But with amateurs, they might mistake a false morel from the true morels, which is shown in the picture below. So false morels, they contains gyromytrine, which is metabolized into MMH, monomethyl hydrazine. And MMH is very similar to jet fuel. So what the hydrazine does in MMH is that it binds to pyridoxine. And this binding of hydrazine to pyridoxine actually interferes with GABA. So when GABA is not able to function properly, you have a very, very low threshold for seizures. And managing seizures in patients with gyromytrine poisoning is extremely difficult. What we normally use is we use high doses of pyridoxine. We're not talking about 100 or 200 milligrams. We're talking about grams of pyridoxine. GI irritants are the most common mushroom poisoning that you see here in Malaysia, especially this one on the right. This is Chlorophylla molybdatiis. The onset of the GI symptoms is early. So if you have a patient that has very early onset of GI symptoms, that's actually a better prognosis, because you're not likely to be dealing with something that is highly toxic like amatoxin or alanine. Treatment of GI irritant mushrooms is supportive. One of my attendings described the vomiting in chlorophyllum as the patient will be vomiting his toenails out. That's how severe the vomiting is. There's not just chlorophyllum, there are other species of GI irritants. Actually, there are many, many species, including little brown mushrooms. LBM is little brown mushrooms, and Rusula species. And these are the common Chlorophylla molybdatiis that is frequently mistaken as the edible dermatositis or cendawan busut. Looking at some data in Hong Kong, mushroom poisoning from 2005 to 2015, you can see here a lot of the poisonings are also GI irritants. Some miscellaneous mushrooms that do not classify in certain toxicity, and this is Curocybella porogens. Now, this mushroom is the angel wings, and it is actually edible. However, there are case reports in Japan where patients with chronic renal failure ended up with encephalopathy, and this is thought because of the renal failure, they are unable to excrete certain amino acids from these mushrooms, and therefore develop encephalopathy. The current recommendation of edibility for Curocybella is it's not recommended for eating. Myotoxic mushrooms causing rhabdomyolysis. Two species that we know, Tricoloma equestre and Rusula subnigricans. Rusula is, subnigricans is found in this region, and it's commonly mistaken as Rusula nigricans, where Rusula nigricans is actually edible, but if you are not able to recognize and you are an amateur mushroom hunter, you might mistake the sub-nigricans as the nigricans and develop poisoning. And the rhabdomyolysis causes a lot of muscle breakdown. So you have GI symptoms, and then you start having fatigue, myalgia with elevated CK, and with the rhabdomyolysis, you end up with AKI and hyperkalemia, cardiac arrhythmias, and cardiac arrest. So the treatment is to hydrate and support the AKI. A few case reports of severe rhabdomyolysis in Taiwan, Japan, and there's a recent publication from Korea as well, all attributed to Rusula subnigricans. So how do you manage this? The clinical cause can be deceptive. As a clinician, it's very important for you to ask the onset of the symptoms. The onset is very important. If the onset of GI symptoms is early, most likely you're not going to be dealing with something extremely toxic. But if it is delayed, then think of the very toxic mushrooms, like your Amanita containing amatoxin, or your oralanine containing mushrooms. If you have atypical manifestation, there is a possibility that there are several species involved. Again, in a cluster of mushrooms, there may be different species growing in a cluster. If you are not sure, or the symptoms with unknown ingestion, if you are not sure what you're dealing with, please admit this patient. You can give activated charcoal if the patient can hold it down. Most of the patients will come in with GI symptoms, so holding down the charcoal is going to be difficult. If you are worried that this patient might vomit and aspirate the charcoal, then you might try to give some antiemetics to help retain the charcoal. Gastric lavage can be done if you're thinking that this, if you're considering a very toxic mushroom, if you're thinking this might be an Amanita, or sometimes we do gastric lavage because there is no specimens available, there is no fresh specimens available, and the best bet is getting some specimens from the gastric contents. In certain cases, we do gastric lavage for that. Life support measures is doing your resuscitation, your fluids, replacing the fluids, correcting the electrolytes, dextrose repletion, and of course, protecting the airway if your patient is having a neurotoxicity, encephalopathy, or coma. Treating the seizures with benzodiazepines. If the seizures are intractable, not responding to your benzodiazepine, you might consider pyridoxine, especially if you think this might be a gyromytrine containing mushrooms. For hallucinogenic mushrooms, if your patients are agitated in delirium, use benzodiazepines. Try to avoid phenytoin for seizures. Atropine is used for muscarinic poisoning. Let me remind you guys that vomiting and diarrhea does not equal muscarine poisoning. There are a lot of GI irritants, mushrooms, that present with vomiting and diarrhea. For you to say this is a muscarinic containing mushroom, the patient has to have muscarine symptoms, which is your bradycardia, your meiosis, okay? Now, for the renal failure, you can dialyze the patient. And if you think that this is hepatotoxicity, this is amatoxin containing mushrooms, we have used silibinin with NAC and acetylcysteine to reduce the toxicity. In Malaysia, we do not have Legalon seal, which is IV silibinine, but you can get formulations of silimarin or silibinine from the pharmacy and buy it as a compound substance and prescribe it to the patient. Excuse me. A few myths on poisoning principles. As a general rule, all white mushrooms are safe to eat. This is absolutely not true. Any mushroom is safe to eat if thoroughly cooked. We know that amatoxin is not, it is not safe to eat even cooked. It is heat stable. Presence of slugs or insects that makes it edible, that's not true. Toxic mushrooms taste or smell bad. Silver turns black when in contact with poisonous mushrooms. This is also a myth. And cooking, peeling, or drying mushrooms remove or inactivate toxins. This is all not true. What we do know is the toxicology of species varies depending on geographic location. So if you have a patient that comes in with poisoning, you need to find out where was the mushroom harvested. Okay, where did it grow? Rotting wood, on the ground, in clusters, single, on the tree. This is very helpful information for our mycologists. If you suspect toxicity, try to obtain samples of the mushroom that was eaten. Best for you to get raw samples. And raw samples, if you are going to the place where the mushroom is harvested, please collect varying stages of the mushroom, not just mature, but try to collect fruiting bodies as well. Mushrooms is often implicated as the cause of illness when other etiologies may be the culprit. This is true. For all you know, the symptoms of vomiting, diarrhea, meiosis could be somebody has sprayed some insecticide over the area and on top of the mushroom. And it's not the mushroom that's causing the muscarinic effects, but it is actually the pesticide or the insecticide that's causing the toxicity. Wild mushrooms should never be eaten raw. And edible mushrooms that has been allowed to deteriorate may become toxic. This is true. So never eat mushrooms that have turned bad. Mushroom allergy can happen. And we have seen this happening to even people who frequently eat the same type of mushrooms. So new in vogue wild mushrooms in specialty markets may not be entirely safe. That is true. I never trust mushrooms, even in restaurants, wild mushrooms that is bought by the chef. No, 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 no. The only mushrooms I trust is the bought stored mushrooms. So when you have a patient and you're trying to get fresh specimens from the relative, from the family, please tell them to collect the mushrooms, the whole specimen in various stages, mature, fruiting bodies, and please dig the mushroom from beneath the ground. We want to see if there is a vulva. Do not cut the mushroom from the ground. Now, when you pack the mushroom, please tell them to put it in a waxed paper or a paper bag. We do not want to use plastic bag because it will cause condensation. Once it condensates, the specimen will degrade very fast. And bring back the specimen so that you can take pictures of it, and then we can send it to the mycologist for identification. Okay, so so how do you take photos? It's not just simply taking a photo. For us to identify, we need certain information. So take photos from the young to mature. So that's why I said when you take the specimen or you tell the family to take the specimen, take it in various stages. And you need to take the cap from above as well as from below. We want to see the gills and the attachment of the gills. So above, below, and cut it in half for us to see the attachment. And sometimes we do tell the medical officers to do a spore print, and this because spore print does also help us to identify the species. Storage is always in wax paper. If the family has collected the specimen and has difficulty to transport it to the hospital, tell them to store it in a paper bag and keep it in the fridge, not in the freezer, but in the fridge. So how do you describe the color of the cap, whether it's dry, whether it's mucoid, whether it's wet, the gills, whether it has gills or pores, the stem, what color is it? Does it bruise easily? Does it have a vulva? Where did it grow? From the tree? Rotten wood on the ground? Did it grow single or clusters? Okay, and I think I'm almost ending. How do you avoid mushroom poisoning? Well, first of all, do not eat wild mushrooms. It's as simple as that. However, if you're feeling a little bit adventurous and you do want to eat wild mushrooms, do not eat them raw. Don't cook all the mushrooms. Keep some raw specimens. Just in case you develop symptoms, bring the raw specimens with you to the hospital so that we can identify. Keep raw specimens in a paper bag in the fridge. Do not eat unfamiliar mushrooms and do not be greedy. Eat small amounts at one time. Also, avoid drinking alcohol when you're eating mushrooms. And some mushrooms can cause a disulfiram-like effect when you drink it with alcohol. So as a last slide, I'd like to share with you, there are old mushroom hunters and bold mushroom hunters, but there are no old bold mushroom hunters. So if you are very careful, you will live to a ripe old age. If you are very bold, you might not live long enough. That's the key, that point that I'm trying to tell you if you're trying to think of foraging wild mushrooms. And that is the end of my talk. I'm sharing with you some of my collection of poisonous mushrooms during my mushroom forage in the forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anissa. Very, very good. I think that kind of tops the whole spectrum of our session today, mushroom poisoning. So we will move on to the next session, which is the Q&A forum session. I would like to invite the two moderators. The first one is Assistant Professor Dr. Aida Nursharini Muhammad Shah. She's emergency physician and assistant professor from the IIUM, International University, Islamic University in Kuantan, Pahang. And she also the director of the IIUM Poison Center. Dr. Aida is also a member of the MST and also Remote Envenoming Consultancy Services. The other moderator is Dr. Muhammad Zaki Fazil bin Senit. He's an emergency physician with special interest in pre-hospital care, wilderness medicine. He also completed subspecialty training under the Ministry of Health in pre-hospital care and disaster medicine. He is currently the president of the Malaysia Wilderness Medicine Society and a member of the MST, also a member of REX. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Zaki and Dr. Aida to conduct the forum.
Prof. Khazun, can you all hear me?
Yes, can we have all panel to turn on their video?
Okay.
Yes, doctor, can you?
All right, that's great. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah, and a very good afternoon. That was a very, very interesting talk. I'm also a mushroom newbie, and even bananas, I can't tell from the different bananas, let alone mushrooms right now. How do we start this, what do we call it, this panel session? I think if I could summarize everything, everybody is...
No need, just ask the question in the Q&A box to the speakers.
It's coming to that. The questions that everybody is asking is all about identification. And I think some of the questions are answered. Prof, do we go through all the questions that have been answered as well?
You can pick and choose.
All right, okay. We'll go with the first one, which I thought was very interesting, and I think a lot of people are asking because of identification. Albertus asked whether there is information in general about the mushroom poisoning from specific family or genus. Can I forward that to Dr. Sabrina? I mean,
come again, the question?
The mushroom poisoning from specific family or genus. Is there information in general? I assume that the question is for the general public. Information for general.
I think it's better for Prof. Jaya to answer.
Oh, okay.
What was the question, Doctor?
Any information in general, the mushroom poisoning from the specific family or genus?
Oh, specific family or genus. What was the question before? I couldn't hear properly.
That is actually the first question.
Oh, third question.
Is there any information in general on mushroom poisoning from specific family or genus?
Specific family or genus. Okay. Actually, family level, every species you can categorize which are the poisonous and non-poisonous. But genus level is the same, where we cannot specify directly all genus is poisonous. Like Amanita, even though the genus is mostly poisonous, but species level relationship is the most important thing, because the species are very specific. So each species, they have their specific poison. So we cannot say that one whole family or genus is all poisonous. There is no such thing. So I hope I answered that question, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya. And the next question is, I think that the next question was Amanita is generally poisoning. I think that has already been answered. There's a question here from, let me see, sorry, certificate, hang on. Right, okay. How, again, it's all about identification, how to ID mushroom. It's already been answered by Dr. Anissa, and Prof. Jaya has already also answered in the question Q&A box.
There are a few open questions.
The one below here, yeah, sorry. Okay. Some questions Prof. Khaldun wanted to answer. I can't find it. I wrote it down.
Open for all.
Open.
Okay, can I ask the question? Do we get activated charcoal only if ingestion time is less than 4 hours? And what is the recommended dose? Dr. Anissa? There's activated charcoal. So Tanisa on?
Hi.
Or Dr.
Can I know where's the question? I'm trying to go.
It's in the Q&A box. In the Q&A box, under open questions, there are 7 open questions. So one of it is by Hon Kit Wong. Do we give activated charcoal only if ingestion time is less than 4 hours? What is the recommended dose?
No, it's not just less than 4 hours. As a matter of fact, for patients that we think could have ingested an amatoxin containing mushroom, we do multi-dose activated charcoal, which is we give activated charcoal 1 gram per kg every 4 hours for the first 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, because the charcoal now, the use of activated charcoal has also, in poisoning, has some amendments, isn't it? We don't, the first hour is more rather than waiting the 4 hours? Or how does it work for mushroom?
for mushrooms, the main point is to keep the charcoal down.
Yeah.
Most of them will come in with vomiting and diarrhea. It's going to be hard for you to hold the charcoal in. Then again, if the patient comes in with early symptoms of GI, I would probably not try to push the charcoal.
Yeah.
Because this probably is not going to be a very, very toxic mushroom. But if the patient presents GI symptoms late, then these are the kind of patients that I would probably consider multi-dose activated charcoal. However, having said that, remember, if the patient had ingested a mushroom that has delayed GI symptoms, it's not likely that the patient is going to present to you early. He's going to present late.
Okay. So,
then, yeah.
That is the thing that you have to consider, whether it's a early onset GI symptom or not. So another question is it true that oyster mushroom can cause intoxication? So Dr. Jaya, oyster mushroom, this one we can find often in the supermarket.
Yeah, the supermarket one is fine to eat. Don't worry and don't get scared, because the oyster mushroom that we have in the market is actually the commercial ones, and it's safe to eat. And sometimes several people, they develop some reaction, like for example, even the shiitake and the Collaborators, which is the schizophyllum. Nowadays, there are some reports saying that they are suffering with some skin reaction. So, and also shiitake for some people, it causes dermatitis as well. So it depends on several people's reaction towards the mushroom consumption. So we cannot say it's not safe anymore. Yeah, because it depends. The whole community is eating now oyster, shiitake, and schizophyllum, which is the here they call kodok, and over there in Peninsula we call Collaborators, right? So even the Collaborators now, they tend to, the spores are affecting the lungs as well. So it depends on the person's individual reaction. Not all of it they're getting it, but some they really love eating mushroom. So how about you eating mushroom, Kan?
Yeah, so that's another issue about this mushroom. It's not just from the supermarket. We see nowadays there's a kind of a movement for people to grow their own mushroom in their own backyard. So how safe is that in terms of, they're preparing the housing, the storage where they put the mushroom, the humidity in the cabin, for example, or they just leave it outside and that could be contaminated with other mushrooms?
Yeah, that's what I told them in the answer, where if it's a mold or any bacterial contamination in which they overseas it, probably it will give like stomach discomfort or something like that. So it's still, it's it's nice and innovative to have the commercial mushroom to be grown in a backyard, but it has to be following the safety procedures. Yeah.
So there's the SOP for growing own mushroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the local communities who are really working on the cultivation farmers, they can train them. So they are well versed with that. So the local farmers can help to set up things like that and teach them, and they can get information from them.
Okay, Dr. Aida, Dr. Zaki, any questions?
Hi, hello, Dr. Zaki. There is a question from the box. I think for Dr. Sabrina. They're asking about whether you can, because the mushroom is poisonous, have a toxic. Can you handle the mushroom with the bare hands? And then the other relevant also, they say if there's activities outdoors, do you suggest them to bring the activated charcoal if they are poisonous? Thank you.
This is my experience. Actually, the mushroom is poison if ingested, but anyhow, there are also description of mushroom spores being inhaled and cause signs and symptoms. So generally, to protect ourselves and healthcare worker, normally I will, if there's specimens brought to the emergency department, I would wear my protective gear before handling all the specimens. And as I reply in the answer about the activated, I thought that actually I have already replied it in the written answer regarding the activated charcoal. Because giving charcoal is not without complications. I think Dr. Anissa would agree with that. So despite of instead of treating yourself first, if you have got the signs symptoms, especially the GIT irritant symptoms, try to get yourself as soon as possible to the hospital for medical assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Sabrina. There's a question here for Prof. Khaldun. Other than photo or physical identification, is there any other analytic method used in Malaysia to detect the toxin of mushroom base of the sample, either blood or urine?
Yeah, so at the moment, what the question is asking was already answered by Dr. Jaya earlier. They're trying to develop some sort of tool to identify the mushroom. So at the moment, there's no real point of care testing. Misalnya, it's like us testing for glucose or doing ECG for just for identifying the type of the species of apa nama mushroom. For example, in snake bite, you have in Australia the snake bite kit. You check the using ELISA test. So far we have not developed. I think Jaya can maybe add a small input about your effort in this.
Yeah, doctor, thank you. I mean, it's for the chemical part. That's what we are figuring out. Okay, by knowing all the chemical groups with the chemist help, where we are trying to come as a simple kits for the doctors to evaluate, like whether the toxin categories, whether it's going to GI or the muscarine type, or is it hepatic effect or neurotoxic. So those specific chemical compounds that sensitive to these categories can be developed, but it's still we are doing the second part, which is evaluating all the chemical diversity. So maybe in the future, we can narrow down the chemical categorization according to the symptom type, I guess.
So at the moment, it's more of academic testing,
Yes.
big machines, the whole compound, trying to maybe using a spectrometry and so on. Yeah. So
LS mass spectra. So it's like
this one cannot be in the pocket in the emergency department at the moment. Yeah. So maybe in the Pusat Racun Negara, is there any input regarding this maybe future endeavor to have a point of care testing for mushroom type of mushroom poisoning? Puan Sazaroni? Puan Sazaroni is driving, maybe. Okay, I think we move on to the next question. Maybe Dr. Zaki, Dr. Aida.
Okay, maybe this question for Dr. Anissa. They're asking about the antidote. Do we have enough antidote in our hospital for the mushroom poisoning? Thank you.
I cannot find the question. Where is it? What antidote?
And is there any antidote for mushroom poisoning? Well, charcoal is not an antidote, so
no, it's not. No, we don't.
Yes, I don't think we have any specific antidote. Yeah.
And different mushrooms have different types of toxins, as we have already covered in these lectures. So no, we don't have an antidote. Like I mentioned, even silibinin is not available in Malaysia. So what the best that we can do is buy a compounded formulation from the pharmacy. We ask the patient's family to buy, and then we prescribe it to the patient. That's the best.
And that's for the hepatic protection.
Yeah. The rest is no, we don't have antidote. It's supportive.
Yes.
Right, thank you, Dr. Anissa. There is a question from an anonymous attendee. Is it possible to develop an immunity or resistance towards a toxic mushroom if we consume small doses regularly? The question says that they read some articles stating that there are some people who are highly resistant to arsenic. So whether that's the same in toxic mushrooms. Dr. Jaya, are you okay to answer that?
Okay. Can you repeat that question? Which one? The question?
whether you can develop immunity or resistance towards a toxic mushroom if they consume in small amounts
Okay.
over time.
This is actually a medical doctor. I think the medical
All right,
doctor.
okay.
So, yeah. Dr.
So
Dr. Ahmad Khaldun.
So far this is like projecting a question of can you be immunized to snake bite by allowing venom of snake, allowing snake venom injected into you. Well, for that's a different kind of a story altogether. So it's not the same picture. So this is about poisoning, and you ingest the proteins and compounds of the toxins. So it's a totally different picture. So Anissa, have you heard about this so-called trying to be immune to arsenic by so-called ingesting arsenic in small amount?
Yeah, that's really I love that one. No, you do not become immune to arsenic. As a matter of fact, if you take it in small doses, you accumulate the arsenic and you will end up with toxicity.
Same like
Similar
lead.
to mushrooms. Yeah, so no, you do not develop immunity. As a matter of fact, you can actually develop allergic reaction.
That is also true for the spores as well, right? The exposure to the spores can trigger the allergic reaction like hay fever, similar.
So I hope I answered that one.
Okay, thank you.
Love the arsenic though.
Yeah.
all right, the next question is there any groups or platform as a public that they can access to share knowledge, pictures, and ID mushroom? Puan Saza, maybe? Do you have any information on this?
Yes, I'm listening. What's the question again, Dr. Aida? Can you speak louder?
Is there any groups or platform that as a public they can access to share knowledge, pictures, and ID for mushroom specimen whenever they find the mushroom?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a
It's some
very
sort
good
of
question.
access again.
This is a very good question. Every time I give talks to students as well, undergrad and postgrad, the same question will pop up from the students to ask whether we have any database, do we have any apps to identify, and similar question like Dr. Aida has posted just now. So far as I'm aware, there is no platform yet, although this is a very good opportunity. Yes, very good opportunity. I know that there are few staff in the computer science background who is doing some sort of project, but I believe that is still early for us to judge. I mean, this is still early for us to use and get benefits from the apps yet. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, something similar with the snake ID as well. So there are many platforms where the public is using to help identify snakes. So similar with mushroom, but the problem is that who are running this platform? They are not certified mycologists, they are not certified physicians, for example, and some of the answers that they provide can be actually misleading as well, and also spreading what we call all the myth as we have heard just now. So, so the public need to be very careful where you source your information from. So that's where, for example, Pusat Racun Negara has the website. For Malaysian Society on Toxinology as well, we try to be, the source of so-called verified and qualified information. So I think what we can do in the future, as Dr. Puan Saza said, the app. So the app can be actually quite a good reference point. Doesn't have to be highly high tech where you do consultation, but it's more of information and direct what you call safety measures that need to be taken. I think that is that can be actually put forward as our project in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Khaldun.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
now I think Jaya has probably some input about this as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great platform, Doctor, that you have created here today. And more works can be done. Like now, I know already whoever the collaborators are, the future collaborators. So, I mean, UKM, I mean, you have a gold mine there in the Orang Asli area. So those studies are always pending. So it's the time to start collecting and working with other mycologists. So that will like elevate our mycological studies as well, not only focusing on edible mass market, but the poisoning issues. And like, for example, like the latest one, the antholoma poisoning is something new. Like we never expect that people go and find the termite mound and then they eat it. The whole family was affected.
Yeah.
So we want to try to mitigate these poisoning outbreaks.
Yeah, so I think the public outreach has to be, upscale. It needs to be really easy to be accessed by the public and access to really experts in the field rather than so-called secondary or tertiary kind of information.
Even the Malaysian book, the guideline, which is the MOH doing, they have all the mycologists according to the west part and the east part. So the patients' cases, when the doctors identify, immediately they can communicate with the mycologist.
Yeah, but that is actually at the so-called professional level. But we are actually looking the issue in terms of prevention. So that is actually in the safety seeking behavior in the public, and also of course health seeking behavior. So this is actually still something very how should I say in the infancy in terms of getting the information or inviting the public to really engage with the experts. So we have to create something a bit more accessible for the public in terms of mushroom poisoning or identifying mushroom. So that was a good question. I think that is something that triggered quite a lot of thoughts to be think about and also develop for the near future.
Sure, I agree with you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, panelists. Dr. Zaki.
Okay, I think there is a question, maybe for all panelists and also Prof. Khaldun. If we already know that patient come to the emergency department with a toxidrome and then we treat conservatively, why we need to find out what is the identification of the mushroom and notify them to the public health, and what is the importance of that? Thank you.
I think, can I just, others can add on, but I think it was what Dr. Jaya was mentioned just now. Yes, they have some symptoms and so on, that's it, but what is actually there in the species identification there? So Dr. Jaya said we picked up the new species of mushroom from the case. So it's the case triggered that lead to a new identification and of mushroom that we didn't know about. So this is very important in terms of documenting the biodiversity species we have in our country, and therefore it can be actually a new added on to the line of knowledge that we have. We can contribute to the world basically. So so that is why it's important to have a very good documentation about all this, and this is through the established protocol that you have to report to poisoning cases of mushroom to the JKN. JKN has to go out and sample the species. Species need to be identified and verified by the certified mycologist, and then it's documented. So this process is long, but it adds really vital information to the whole spectrum of mushroom poisoning. Something similar for snake bite that we have done already.
I agree with Dr. Khaldun.
Anybody else want to add on? Maybe Saza?
Again, Doctor?
Why is it important for all cases of mushroom poisoning, no matter how serious it is, for the doctors and so on to report and make it to go out and sample specimens and so on?
Oh, okay. This is this is a very important issue that Dr. Kadun has addressed. Once we have a full collection, we can see or we can identify the overview of mushroom species that we have, because so far we have about few thousand, if I'm not mistaken, anybody please correct me, 4 to 5,000 known toxic or poisonous, but we don't have full data about that yet. Even other agencies like FRIM, if I'm not mistaken, I've gone through the list, but we couldn't find the shape, the everything. Once we have this full data in terms of education and prevention, we can reach further. We can identify what is the most main issues regarding the mushroom poisoning in our country. Yeah, I think it's something about that. So every time we have cases regarding the mushroom poisoning from National Poison Center, we welcome all of the doctors to report or to call us, so that we can identify, we can have a full data about what is going on in the country regarding this species. I mean, the mushroom family.
And I just want to add on, maybe Dr. Anissa can also cover, to add on. In terms of poisoning, there is also issue of legal aspect, or maybe criminal aspect as well. So just now, Dr. Anissa said, the family friend gave them the mushroom and everybody got poisoned. So did they have a quarrel between these two families before he was giving the mushroom,
Dr. Kalgun, sorry, once since you have mentioned about legal issue, I forgot to mention to all of the to share this with all of you. So far in our data, we have identified about 4 cases. Even though this number is very little, but we have identified 4 cases which where the patient consumed the poisonous mushroom to suicide themselves. That is one thing, and there are also we see the trend of uh, eating mushroom for certain hallucinogenic effects.
Yeah, you call
In
shrooms.
other countries, in Western countries, this is quite common, the
Yes.
habit. But we can see that this trend is coming over to our country as
Yes.
well.
Psychedelic.
Actually, we do have many species of psychedelic, and I have found 16 species in Sabah. But
Oh, great. Can get high in Sabah.
I don't report that because it's narcotic. So we have to sip our mouth on that, because the public is always curious. Doctor, boleh cari magic mushroom ka?
Ah, yes.
So
maybe.
Yeah,
In US,
that is the important thing that I didn't actually mention in my presentation as well, because once we actually tell those species, and people will start actually searching around for that kind of mushrooms.
Our country is rich in poisons. Yeah.
But it causes your hallucination, and then if overdose is cost, I mean, people might die because they don't know how much of amount they use. So that's why, I mean, one of the, like nowadays, I think one of the article came in Petri Dish also, like from Dr. Shane on this magic mushroom, where in KL people are cultivating them, like they're buying from Amazon or Lazada. So it's a big culture in the clubbing, and they use for, to hallucinate. So that's a very dangerous situation, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope public they realize this is not a good to try out like in a large portion or something.
Yeah, so that's why every case of poisoning of mushroom, even other poisoning, treat similarly, you need to report. So that was the initial question. Good one.
Right. There is a question here.
Maybe we can entertain another one, so we are out of time.
Okay, so if I'll do the last one. If a patient passed away due to post-consumption of mushroom, is it able to be identified through postmortem or forensic sciences? Open to anybody who's the expert here to answer that. Does the
Is the
poison
patient
center have info?
able to identify through postmortem and forensic science?
Postmortem and forensic science.
Whoever done
Maybe maybe Dr. Anissa have experience when you are in US.
Okay, hang on. I'm trying to process the question. If the patient passed away due to post-consumption of mushroom, is it possible to identify through postmortem and forensic science? Well, generally, patients who die from mushroom poisonings do not die immediately. They die from organ failure, either renal or liver failure, and that takes some time. So what happened to the question?
It's categorized as answered because you're answering it, I suppose.
It's okay, okay.
Yeah.
So in that kind of cases, I don't know how you're going to identify, probably from scientific laboratory, GCMS, mass spectrometry, liquid chromatography, or gas chromatography, looking for hematoxin or phallotoxin or arylanine or something like that, rather than taking a sample from the gastric. Clinically, you would have already a high index of suspicion what we're dealing with, especially if the patient ends up with liver failure or renal failure, or a mixture of both. What was the question again?
Let's say, for example, somebody who has not come to the hospital and that found dead at home, and then there are some mushroom in the pot, for example, and vomiting and diarrhea there. So when they are sent to the hospital, they don't come through emergency. So there's no sign and symptoms. So what we have, they will go straight away to the mortuary, and maybe the police will start forensic investigation, and I think they will just take the usual sampling and so on that they will decide. But I think we don't really have a specialized saying that test for all these, except for the one that already mentioned, for the poisons, the compounds that is in the mushrooms samples. So yeah, I mean that is a forensic science issue. So anything else, moderators? Any other questions?
No, actually, there's no more questions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can we conclude our session?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoyed the speakers' presentation. I learned a lot in the process. And also, thank you so much for the participants who asked the questions. So we have our e-certificate already prepared for you. It's already now posted to the chat compound. You can click on the link for your e-certificate for the participants. And we have already recorded this session on YouTube. So we are actually projecting live now on YouTube as well. So I think for the last comments, I would say thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to all speakers and moderators and also participants for your active contribution to this session. So we hope to see you again in the next session. With that, I bid you farewell and take care. Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye, Prof.
I will leave this on for a couple more minutes for the participants to click on the e-certificate.
Okay.
Thank you, Puan Sazaruni.
Okay, thank you.
Safe
Thank you
drive.
to all the panelists.
Thank you.
See you in the new year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah,
Happy
thank
New
you.
Year.
Holiday, everyone.
Jaya, you know what to prepare when I come visit you in Sabah. There's what? How 11 species of.
As soon the COVID gone, Doctor, just visit, Doctor.
Yeah, we have to test all those samples.
Yeah.
Okay.
The toxic one.
Can you do with coffee?
The hallucinogenic one. Oh yeah, that's the one that mixed with coffee. I also saw that one.
Yeah. True.
Sabah coffee and
Yeah,
cendawan.
welcome to Sabah. Definitely, we have to invite you all. Now it's a
Thank you.
cheaper price, huh, Doctor?
Yeah.
Now the hotels are all cheap. So
Okay. No, I'll stay in your house.
okay, thank
That's
you, Doctor.
cheapest.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.